Baruchot Abaot, ladies, and welcome to another edition of Torah Anytime. I'm so happy that you could join us this week for what I'm sure will be an inspirational shiur. I want to thank you all for always tuning in and taking time from your busy schedule of work and household duties to listen to Divrei Torah so that you can strengthen yourselves and elevate yourself mala mala min chayil el chayil. It's customary during the weeks of the summer to learn Pirkei Avot. So I figured this week we would go over a Mishnah that is so important. The Mishnah states the following: Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, alav shalom, bechol yom vayom, bat kol yotzet mehar chorev umachrezet ve'omeret, oy lahem laberiyot me'elbona shel Torah. He says that there is a voice that emanates daily from Har Chorev. Har Chorev is Har Sinai. A bat kol calls out and says, oy lahem laberiyot. Woe to the people because of their insult to Torah. It seems that people, until today, are insulting the Torah. And because of this, there is a voice that comes forth from heaven and it bemoans this tragic fact. Woe to the people. What a terrible shame it is that there are people that are insulting the Torah HaKdosha, Elbona Shel Torah. The question is, can we hear this voice? If we take a trip to Har Chorev, will we hear this voice? Well, Jews who have traveled to that location haven't heard this voice. So what's going on over here? The Mefarshim on the Zohar Kadosh explain that it's one of those voices that resonates daily. But it's not a voice that people could hear with their regular ears. It's almost like sonar hearing, where humans can't detect the sound, but animals like bats can hear it on their frequency. So there are sound waves that come forth from that part of the world, and the transmission of that sound is Oy lahem laberiyot me'elbona shel Torah. But who hears this? The bats? What good is it if the bats hear it and I don't hear it? So the Mefarshim on this Zohar Kadosh explain that the neshama of every Jew has the frequency that's able to pick up those sound waves, believe it or not. And if you wonder why some people wake up in the middle of their lives and suddenly they're chozer b'tshuva, or suddenly they have an urge to pick up a siddur, suddenly they want to elevate themselves spiritually. They want to daven, although they haven't davened since they were in the first grade. The inspiration, the basis for this sudden surge of spiritual energy, this basis for the sudden tshuva in a person is caused, according to the Zohar Kadosh, as a result of that bat kol, that voice. The neshama tunes into that voice that screams, Oy lahem laberiyot me'elbona shel Torah. And that sound serves as an inspiration in order to motivate people to do tshuva. And that is a spiritual phenomenon. There are voices that emanate from Har Sinai, and they can and they will affect a person's neshama from time to time. The question is, what's the insult that we're speaking about? What is this elbona shel Torah? Simply put, people are not studying Torah. And instead of learning Torah is becoming more and more neglected. And although the Torah HaKadosha is the root of all the wisdom in the world, the source of all the chokhmot, and the blueprint of creation, and the most pivotal piece in the creation of which without it, there wouldn't even be a world. But with all of that, after all is said and done, the Torah HaKadosha is not being studied enough. But believe it or not, that's not the insult. The insult is if there aren't people who are studying the Torah HaKadoshah like they're supposed to, who is going to protect it against its attackers? Who's going to protect it against the imposters who purposely come to misinterpret the Torah? If nobody is proficient in the study of Torah, who is going to answer all those who come and offer their crooked and warped interpretations? Who's going to defend the Torah Kedosha against the modern views, against the distortions that try and cause the change in the Torah world? Who's going to do that? If people aren't going to be experts in the study and the learning of Torah, they will, chaz v'shalom, not be able to protect it. A neglected Torah becomes a defenseless Torah. And therefore, woe to the insult. Oy lahem laberiot me'elbona shel Torah. There are many Bible critics out there in the world. There are many people who are vandalizing the Torah HaKadosha's holy words on a daily basis. They're offering new interpretations and they're maligning the Chachamim. They ridicule the Avot HaKadoshim and they speak out against everything that is Kadosh. And the regular man has no ability to answer them. The regular person is forced to say, oh, you know what, maybe they're right, they have a point. I didn't look at it that way. And he says this because he's not learned enough. If one sits and studies Torah, he'll have the answers and the ability to confidently protect the Torah. And therefore, the Torah becomes insulted. El-bona shel Torah, because people aren't studying Torah enough to defend it against its critics. When one studies Torah, he starts to realize how great the rabbis of our earlier generations were. And when he starts to see the greatness and the kedusha, he's immediately filled with anava, with humility, and he approaches the words of the Chachamim and their lives very, very carefully. It's only those who think that the rabbis of the previous generations were old-fashioned and that they're smarter than the rabbis of yesteryear, and therefore these people take a very arrogant approach and they begin to attack the Chachamim and they attack the great rabbis. Think of the Rambam, alav shalom, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. He was one of the greatest of Rishonim. We can't imagine what it was like to be the Rambam. You realize what an accomplished scholar he was? He knew so much and he was known to be an expert in almost every single subject. This was a man that was said about him, Mi Moshe ve'ad Moshe, lokam ke Moshe. From Moshe Rabbeinu's time, we're told, it's hard to replace the Rambam. That being said, a few generations before the Rambam's time, there was a group of rabbis called the Geonim. Now, you may recognize some of the names like Rav Chai Gaon, alav shalom, Rav Saadia Gaon, alav shalom. You should know that the Rambam felt humbled in front of these Geonim. As great as he was, he felt he couldn't argue against the Geonim. And the greatest of the Geonim is totally humbled in front of the Rabbanim that came before him, who are called Amoraim. The Geonim felt that they couldn't argue against the likes of the Amoraim. There were also the early Amoraim, like Rav and Shmuel, aleim shalom. But even Rav and Shmuel, who were considered the greatest of the early Amoraim, couldn't argue against the Rabbanim before them, who were the Tanaim. The Tanaim were the ones who wrote and compiled the Mishnah. Now there was a Rav named Rav Asi, alav shalom, and he fasted 300 times. Can you imagine? Just so that Rav Chia, alav shalom, who was a Tana, would appear before him in a dream. Can you imagine this, ladies? This is the level of the Rabbanim that we're speaking about. And on Rav Asi, it was said that on one occasion in his chut, the world was saved from destruction. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to destroy the world, and because of Rav Asi, he changed his mind. It's unbelievable things that we learn. Now, Rav Asi, as great as he was, had rabbis before him, like Rabbi Meir, alav hashalom, Rabbi Akiva, alav hashalom, Rabbi Elazar ben Horkonos, alav hashalom. And as great as those rabbis were, they don't compare to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and he was considered the smartest of Hillel's students, of which there were 80. So could you imagine the levels that we're referring to over here? And now, Hillel's rabbis were Shmaya and Naftalion. And they were the smallest members of the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. And Anshe Knesset HaGdolah had Nevi'im above them. Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi Aleim HaShalom. You know the difference between a prophet and a rabbi, a Navi and a Rav? It's a completely different level. It's a completely different madriga. And even in the prophecy department, there were levels, because Yirmiyah Navi, alav hashalom, was not as great as Yonah Hanavi. And Yonah Hanavi was not as great as Elisha Hanavi, alav hashalom. And Elisha Hanavi wasn't as great as Eliyahu Hanavi, and so on and so forth. And you should know that we're told that David HaMelech alav hashalom was greater than all of them. Do you imagine? David HaMelech was even earlier on the chart. So these are the levels that we're talking about. These were the elders before you and me, before the Rambam. Now, compare the Rambam to David HaMelech, it's light years away. So you understand what I'm getting at? In other words, if the Rambam is considered on a plateau above certain scholars of his time, could you imagine the caliber that we're speaking about when referring to David HaMelech? So how could anybody come along and talk about David HaMelech in like a very casual manner, as if you're talking about your buddy? David HaMelech, the King David, he got himself into trouble with Bathsheba. You know what you're talking about? You wouldn't talk that way about your father. You wouldn't talk that way about the Rambam. And David HaMelech was 10,000 times greater than him, and the Rambam admits that. Again, there's a lineage that goes back to early times, and each generation before it was on a greater level than the one that followed. So when we go back to the Avot HaKadoshim, ladies, this is a level all on its own, because our Avot were the pillars of the world. So one who studies the Torah HaKadosha and the greatness of our previous Gedolim is able to defend it from the insults that are brought about by the people who are shallow amateurs who don't know the first thing about learning. So the Torah comes along, there's a voice that calls out from the heavens, woe to the insult of Torah, oy lahem laberiyot, me'elbona shel Torah. And the only remedy for this is that we have to ensure that our children are learning Torah so that they could one day bring the truth to the surface, because falsehood can only be won through emet, and emet could only be realized through the study of Torah. The Gaon of Vilna, alav hashalom, once woke up in the morning and he said that he had a dream. In this dream, he was given the explanation of the words Alu ze banegev. 3 very innocent words in the Torah Kedosha. The Gaon said that he forgot the explanation, and he claimed that he forgot the explanation because he thought of this Dvar Torah before he said in the morning, before he recited in the morning, Birkot Torah. So he felt that HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished him by making him forget the explanation to these 3 words in the Torah. Could you imagine? So a few years later, the Gaon of Vilna was asked if he ever, by the way, did you ever recover the explanation? And he said, yes. As a matter of fact, when I had that dream, I was given 2,060 explanations on those 3 words. Do you hear this? 2,060 explanations. Could you give me one explanation? You know what? Forget the explanation. Can you tell me what these 3 words mean? We don't even know what those words mean. We don't even know the pshat. But I'm trying to tell you the Torah Kedosha is so deep. It's like an endless ocean. We call it Yam HaTalmud. Just like we can't empty out the Atlantic Ocean, even if we stood there for 100 years with a bucket trying to empty it out, if we went back after those 100 years, would it make a dent in the waters? No, that's Torah. It's so deep that even on just 3 words, the Gaon of Vilna was able to give 2,060 explanations. And he said that by the way, very interestingly, he said that in those 3 words lies the study of psychology. He said, if you want to figure out the psychology of human beings, one interpretation will give you clear insight, and that one interpretation will also give you the understanding of the strength of every single limb in the human body. Can you imagine? And the Gaon said, and that's just one interpretation of those 2,060, one interpretation from those 3 words. Aluz Negev. What about the other 2,059? Ladies, that gives you a small idea of what's in the Torah HaKadosha. And that's how we approach the Torah, that it's so vast, it's so deep. And therefore the voice calls out from on high and bemoans the fact, woe to those who don't learn Torah, El Bona Shel Torah. That's one way to interpret it. We could also interpret El Bona Shel Torah somewhat differently from what we just mentioned. Aside from the fact that we have to take the time to learn Torah, we also have to give kavod to those who study the Torah, those who learn the Torah, those who give it over. The Torah Kedosha places tremendous emphasis on the importance of giving kavod to our rabbis, to our rebbitzins, Talmidei Chachamim. We should respect those who immerse themselves and sacrifice their lives for the study of Torah, for giving it over. The pasuk in Tehillim says, Ve'et yireh Hashem yechabed. And those that fear Hashem, we have to respect them. There's by the way, a specific person that this pasuk is referring to. The Gemara says it's referring to Melech Yehoshaphat, alav shalom. When he would see a young rabbi, he would rise from his throne. The king himself would rise and call the young scholar, call out to him and say, Avi, Avi, Rabbi, Rabbi, Mori, Mori, my father, my teacher, my master. Ladies, Yehoshaphat had such kavod for those who study the Torah. The Torah Kedosha places the kavod that we should grant our chachamim on the same plateau as the Ribono Shel Olam. The Mishnah says, Mora Rabbach ke Mora Shamayim. The fear that you have for your rabbi has to be like the fear of heaven. And the pasuk in the Torah Kedosha says, Ubo tidbak, you have to cling to Hashem. The Gemara asks on this pasuk, is it possible to cling to Hashem? Hashem is like a fire. How do you cling to fire? You get burned. And the Gemara says, when one clings to a Talmid Chacham, to a rabbi, when one attaches himself to those who are learning Torah, whether it is by supporting the Talmidei Chachamim, or taking a Talmid Chacham, for example, as a son-in-law, or doing business with a Talmid Chacham, so you should be able to have parnasah in his life, that's as if you're attaching yourself to the Ribono Shel Olam. Ubot tidbak. The Gemara says, Kol hamevazeh talmid chacham en lo chelek leolam haba. That's scary. Those that ridicule Talmidei Chachamim forfeit their share in the world to come. This is El Bona Shel Torah. Those who insult those who study the Torah HaKadosha. Our attitude should be like the old-timers, that we should have this tremendous admiration for the people who are learning Torah. I remember once hearing Rabbi Mansour, alav shalom, repeating a story about a great man who lived in the Syrian community. His name was Nissim Tawil, alav shalom. He was born in Eretz Israel, and his business ventures eventually led him to Shanghai, China. during the time of the Holocaust, and there was a boat that arrived there, which carried many immigrants, some of which were Jewish men who happened to have escaped from the Meir Yeshiva in Poland, and they ended up there in Shanghai. Mr. Tawil, who was a Syrian Jew, heard that there was an opportunity to save these men, so he went to the government officials of China. He risked his life, and he signed his name vouching for each of these people, that they were indeed legitimately good people. And he was the man who brought over the Talmidei Chachamim from the Meir Yeshiva, which inevitably at some point reconstructed itself in Shanghai. So when he was asked, Mr. Tawil said, when I heard that these men had beards and they were learning Torah, it gave me more incentive to save them. I had an opportunity to save Talmidei Chachamim. And he negotiated a deal with the Chinese government to allow these Jewish scholars the ability to emigrate. Ladies, this was the attitude of the olden days. Whether you were an Ashkenazi, whether you were Sfaradi, if you were learning Torah, you deserved honor and kavod. Mr. Tawil was a Syrian who fought very hard and saw to it that the Jews from Poland had a place to be. Didn't matter, Sfaradi, Ashkenazi. Today in modern society, it's a little different. We have people who look upon the great yeshivot that are producing Talmidei Chachamim, who are generating thousands of hours of learning. We look at them in a negative light. Many people speak rigidly against these institutions, and Chachamim say this is part of El Bona Shel Torah on the highest level. It's tantamount to blasphemy. We shouldn't speak out against well-known yeshivot, whether they're run by Ashkenazim or Sfaradim. We have one Torah, even though we have different minhagim, and maybe even different pronunciations for each letter, but nevertheless, we share the same Torah. We share the same God. And no one should dare. No one should have the total lack of shame to disparage the yeshivot of our time, or the Chachamim, no matter their ethnic background, whether they're Ashkenazim or Sfaradim. These are the people that the Pasuk in Pirkei Avot are referring to, the ones who are bashing the institutions and yeshivot and Talmidei Chachamim. Oy lahem! Woe to those people who have the attitude that they think they could insult Talmidei Chachamim and the yeshivot, and they feel, oh, they're above everybody else, they're above the Talmid Chacham, and it's they who are removing themselves from the traditions of our grandfathers and great-grandfathers who did so much to be able to see to it that the Torah is maintained and preserved, who saw to it that the dignity and the kavod of the Talmidei Chachamim is preserved, that they're saved. And those are the people that are moving away from the traditions of our Torah, which demands the highest respect for Talmidei Chachamim. That's a second explanation. I want to offer a third explanation to what El Bona Shel Torah could possibly mean. Many people have a misconception regarding the Torah HaKdosha. They assume it's merely a book of laws, the book of do's and don'ts, filled with restrictions and halachot and details and rituals. But they fail to realize that our Torah is not a cold book. It's not a book like the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, which simply lists the do's and don'ts. And today you know that the Bill of Rights and the Constitution means nothing at this point. We see that unfolding slowly, unfortunately. In a world that claims to be democratic, the Constitution is flying out the window. But anyway, Torah, my dear friends, is a lifestyle. It's a way of life. And I want to give you an example of what lifestyle means. And please forgive me if I give an example which you may find beneath you or not worthy to be spoken about. But there used to be an episode on the Televizia For all of you who don't know what a tembelevizia is, first of all, for all of you who don't know what a tembel is a dummy. Televizia is a television. Put the two together, it's a idiot box. Yafe. So there used to be an episode on the Tembelevizia called The Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. What was it all about? They showed the viewers how the rich and famous celebrities live, as if we're really interested in how they live. Nachon? They would show their lifestyles because they live a certain way, these celebrities. They would show their furniture, they would show their mansions, the moldings and the trimmings of their fancy homes. And of course, these celebrities, they dress a certain way, so they would show the different boutiques that these celebrities shop in, and they'd show the accessories that they buy and how much money they would spend. And of course, we also know that these celebrities eat a certain way. They don't just eat in any restaurant, so they would take you through the motions. You would see their managers making a reservation for them at the restaurant. The limousine comes to pick them up. And then they would interview the celebrities so that the viewer understands the hashkafa of this celebrity's life. And bekitzur, for 1 hour, everybody in America was like eating this up. And every week was the same, where they would show the lifestyles of the rich and famous. And you watch this and you think to yourself, wow, what a life. Now this is the life. This is Gan Eden Ba'olam Hazeh. And you're drooling as you're watching their mansions and their cars. And during the commercials, by the way, you start to say Prakim of Teilim, asking Hashem, please, Borei Olam, let this happen to me. This attitude, ladies, is what causes that bat kol to come out from the heavens and say, Oy lahem laberiyot mi elbona shel Torah. That they're willing to trade in a lifestyle of Torah for a lifestyle of sheker, for a lifestyle of falsehood, of lies, of emptiness. You know, I always wondered, what would happen if they put me on the show? Even though I'm not rich, I'm a little famous thanks to you, but I'm not rich. But one thing is for sure, by the way, if they would put me on the show, many people would be chozrin b'tshuva. But they're never going to put me on the show. But anyway, what would happen if they put me on the show? I would wonder what the American people would say if they saw me waking up in the early morning, taking my funny-looking cup, which I keep covered in a basin next to my bed, and they never seen a netilat yadayim cup before in their life. And before I even brush my teeth, I start to play with the cup. I wash my hand this way, and then that way, right, then left. And they're looking on, these viewers, and they think to themselves, oh, maybe it's a fluke. Maybe I tuned into a funniest home videos or something. I don't know. This, ladies, is our lifestyle. Every day, we wake up and we wash netilat yadayim. Now, other lifestyles also have a cup. Some people wake up to a glass of martini. It's a special drink that comes in a special glass with a special olive. Okay, so those people have their special glass, and I have mine. So you watch the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and you see a guy sitting by the pool in the morning with a glass of martini, and then you see me in the morning with a plastic netilat yadayim cup. And you would see the difference between our rituals and their rituals. Maybe some would find our lifestyle less appealing. Not maybe, for sure. Maybe some people would want to connect to the lifestyles of the rich and famous in an attempt to imitate their ways. And eventually they would be willing to relinquish their neshama in the process, unfortunately. Well, ladies, The Torah HaKadosha is also a lifestyle. It's also a club. But to be in the club, you have to follow the rules and the regulations. Like any other club, Yahadut is also a club. Except that our dealings are with those that are of the highest caliber, a higher type of clientele. And some of you might be thinking, yeah, but their lifestyle seems a lot better because they have very little restrictions and they could pretty much do whatever they want. Elam din ven dayan. So let me explain it to you with an example. If you were invited to visit the President of the United States in the Oval Office tomorrow morning, now granted, some of you are like, no big deal, it's just Trump. But still, Trump is considered like a melech. He's a nasi. He's a melech. Many of you maybe would be flattered to receive such an invitation, no? But then you'd be told that you have to remove your jeans. You can't wear just a schlocky, torn t-shirt. And you have to look presentable. And you have to be up at 6 a.m. in order to make the flight to get to Washington, D.C. And these are the things that you might not necessarily like to do. You might like your jeans, you might like your torn t-shirt, you may like waking up late in the morning, but to get a chance to see the President of the United States of America in the Oval Office and to say that you were in the White House and to take pictures with the President, you're willing to give up a low-level pleasure for a high-level pleasure. Everybody wants pleasure in this world, so it's a trade-off. So even though it's not so convenient for you to have to change, you got to put on a skirt, and you got to put on a nice shirt, and you have to look presentable, mechubedet, and you got to wake up early in the morning. But you know what? To sit with the President and to feel the kavod, all that is worth a bit of convenience. You know that. I'll give you another example. In England, in front of the famous Buckingham Palace, where the Queen of England resides, there are many guards that are stationed there for the safekeeping of the palace. All they do is stand there for 6 hours at a time doing absolutely nothing. They're not allowed to move, and they wear these heavy, hot uniforms with those huge, furry hats that keep their chin pretty much plastered. And whether it's summer or winter, they have to wear their uniform even if they faint. Now, listen to this, ladies. If they do faint, the guard has to lay there on the floor untouched. You can't touch him until he wakes up and resumes his position, or until he's replaced after his 6-hour shift has ended. You hear this? Now tell me, who would want such a terrible job? Who would want to sit there, stand there actually, for 6 hours like a statue with people of all nationalities making fun of you, trying to make you laugh, and you have to remain there frozen? Who would volunteer for such a job? But then, ladies, I learned that these guards come from the most aristocratic families in London. And only certain families with yichus are able to inherit such a position, and it's considered one of the loftiest positions you can get. It's a position of stature because you are protecting the Queen of England. Do you hear this? So what does that tell us? To this guard, the pleasure of protecting the Queen of England is worth all the restrictions that came along with that job. Why? Because his job means that he's included with those that are considered the cream of the crop of the London society. He's following the rules and the regulations of his position in order to fit into the standards of one of the highest clubs in England, and that's the club of the Queen. Borei Olam, lehavdil elef alfei avdalot, he also has a club. It's called the Torah Club. To be in the club, you have to follow the rules. And if you follow the rules, you're in. With who? With Borei Olam, with the Malachim, with the Tzaddikim, with the Avot HaKadoshim. Before, we gave examples of people. But now we're talking about Borei Olam, which gave those other people their wealth and their stature. Now you might be thinking, wow, it sounds like an elitist group. How do I get in? You want in, ladies? You have to wake up in the morning and take that funny looking cup and wash Netilat Yadayim. And if you don't do it, you're out. You're out, you can't be in the club. And if you're out, then you can go with those people who experience the lower forms of pleasure, like sleeping in bed until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, drinking martinis all day long, reading stupid novels, accessing the internet all day and all night, chit-chatting on different chat lines with your phones, your smartphones. Your smartphones, by the way, are making you not so smart. That's a nice word I wanted to use. So you could attach yourself to that form of lifestyle, waking up late and wasting your time chatting on the internet with your smartphone. But remember that you won't have a share in the higher forms of pleasure, nor are you going to be considered part of the elitist group. With clothing, it's the same. If you want to be part of this club, you have to wear a uniform. You have to wear a skirt that covers your knee, well below the knees. You have to wear shirts that cover your elbows and don't reveal your collarbone. And while you're at it, if you buy a nice suit for Shabbat, remember to check it for shatnez once in a while, Borei Olam says, listen, you could wear the suit of your choice as long as it's modest and that the label in it says that it's been checked for shatnez. Because when we're going to come to those heavenly gates after 120 years, they're not going to check our suits to see if the label says Giorgio Zafrani. They're looking for the label that says shatnez free. They don't care if it's a Calvin Klein. Now, as a woman, you have the Bechira Chofshi to say, well, I choose to wear the fashions of Paris. I choose to subjugate myself to the perverted and low morals of the fashion designers of Paris. Okay, no problem. Bechira shelach. It's your choice. But remember, you can't be part of the group because in our club, we don't dress that way. And therefore, if you do, you can't then associate yourself with Borei Olam. You can't be in the elite group with the chashuvim and the meyuchasim, because a representative of the king has to look a certain way. He has to speak a certain way. He has to behave a certain way. And if he doesn't, the melech has to say to him, bye-bye. You're no longer representing us. Now, our minhagim, our way of life, is an entry into one of the most prestigious and finest clubs imaginable, ladies. And those who fulfill the Taryag mitzvah to their best ability have a chelek la'olam haba. Because the lifestyle of the outside world is only a limited pleasure which finds us eventually feeling very empty, very alone. And it's nothing compared to our Torah Kedosha. You can't compare what the outside world is offering, which is emptiness, rekanut, choshech, to the light of Torah, to the Kedusha of Torah. Let's face it, unfortunately, our people like to be in. No one likes to feel left out. That's the nature of people. My dear friends, membership is now opened for this group called Am Hashem. Every Shavuot, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reminds us what the rules are. He reminds us that we applied to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's exclusive club and we were accepted to be an Am Kadosh separate and holy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu reminds us every Shavuot that we have to honor the rules of the elitist club. HaKadosh Baruch Hu reminds us that if we follow the rules, we're going to be set for eternity. When we arrive in Olam Haba and we give our names, they're going to say, Mrs. So-and-so, come right in, bechavod gadol, we welcome you. The malachim are going to greet you. What a welcoming you're going to get. What a brucha haba you're going to get. And then, of course, you're going to have those who decided to be involved with the wrong social group in this world. And unfortunately, when they come to Shamayim, they may not be granted permission to enter. They'll be standing there behind some skinny man with a white beard, and the angels will grant this old man such kavod, such a welcoming that is worthy of kings. And those people are going to look on knowing, I've been ousted from this group. And they're going to think to themselves, how come that old man was able to get in? I mean, look at him. He's wearing a polyester suit. Ladies, Yahadut is a lifestyle, a worthy and prestigious way of life. But when we trash it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Oy lahem laberiyot me'elbona shel Torah. What an elbon this is. What an insult it is to the Torah when Jews choose these alternate lifestyles, le'avdil, these different ways of living, and instead of having a chance to be with Borei Olam, with the Malachim, with the Tzaddikim, they abandon their true faith and their people. They choose instead to be with the lowly people, to experience lowly pleasures. They forfeit their eternity for emptiness, for simple pleasures. Oy lahem, Borei Olam says, Oy lahem. And therefore, ladies, this is our chance now before Shavuot to recommit and register ourselves. Registration is open to the Torah's club, to the ways of the Torah. So let's make an effort to reach our spiritual potential, because Borei Olam wants us to be part of His club. He's rooting for us, and He wants to try to make it easier for us, but we just have to show Him that we're making an effort and that we're actually concerned about Torah, that we actually care about His Torah. Because Chachamim teach us, Haba letaher mesayen oto min hashamayim. He who comes forward in an attempt to purify himself, the higher worlds come forward to assist him. I hope, therefore, that after this Chag HaShavuot that's coming up very soon, ladies, we're going to make an effort to re-accept the Torah that we received on Har Sinai, and that we're going to reconfirm our commitments to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And with that, we're going to enjoy a joyous life in Gan Eden, reaping the rewards of everything that we earned here on earth. Ladies, תזכו למצוות, למעשים טובים, לחיים ארוכים, לשפע ברכות וכל טוב. אמן כן יהי רצון.